Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello. Welcome to this episode. It's going to be a bit sensitive, but in a really good way. This is something that we need to talk about. And I have the pleasure of having Joelle Kaufman with me. Ms. Kaufman is a 40-year intergenerational cancer survivor. That is heavy. And she's also the author of Crushing the Cancer Curveball. Book is coming out. Is it out yet?
It'll be out on January 28th.
Love it. Hi, Joelle. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It's so great to be here.
I'm really, really grateful for you to be here and for you to share your story and help educate us, because there's a lot that is still very scary about a cancer diagnosis, let alone having a generational history of it. Can you walk us through what happened in your case?
Sure. And I'll try to give the abbreviated version. People can read the longer one. But so the abbreviated was when I was 13, my 36-year-old mother, at the height of health, a tennis champion, fabulous, found a lump in her breast. First one of anyone in her family that she knew. It was malignant. She had a unilateral modified mastectomy, and 6 days later came home and with an expander, and she had lots of surgeries. And I was like, how did that happen? Young people don't get breast cancer. What is that? So I did some research and concluded that it was kind of a blip. Then it came back. I was 15 and a half and she came back. And it came back in the same exact place, like on the scar line. So it's what's called a local regional occurrence.
Right.
And that led to a year of chemotherapy and radiation for my mother and my efforts to try to have as normal a life. My parents felt very isolated. I felt very isolated. It's not like other 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds kind of know what to say. And frankly, fast forward to today, the number one thing I get asked by people is, what do I say to someone? So I want to answer that here. I'll answer it right now. When someone tells you that they have cancer or someone they love has cancer, you say, I am so sorry you have to deal with that. And I am here for you for whatever you need. And that's it.
Yeah.
You don't be strong, be positive. You got this. You'll beat this. Just be human and listen. Is there anything you want to talk about? Not really. Okay. Let's move on. I happen to hate pity. And so it was because of my story, which I'll tell in a moment, I had to tell about 300 people the day I was diagnosed. And I needed to tell them, this happened, and this is what I didn't need and don't need, because otherwise I was possibly going to be inundated. Yeah. So why was that? My mother had cancer. About 20 years later, when my sister had finished an Ironman 3 months before her wedding, I'm 40 weeks pregnant with my second child. She discovers a lump, and it's malignant. She's 29 years old. At this point, I had thought we probably had a genetic link. Turns out 90% of breast cancers are not genetic, and we might not have had a genetic link. Okay. We did. We had the BRCA1 mutation. In a twisted way, it's a great mutation to have. Yes, it leads to about an 80% lifetime probability of breast cancer. Right. Breast cancer is detectable and treatable. It's a highly studied mutation, and it's highly responsive to treatment. So would I choose cancer? No. Do I have a choice? No. So the one I got to deal with is detectable. It also has a high incidence of ovarian cancer. Right. And because of that, once I found out that I had the gene, and when I was done having my children, I actually had my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed to reduce my breast cancer risk and radically lower the ovarian cancer risk. And my mother and my sister have done the same. Mm-hmm. However, cancer keeps coming up with us. And I thought I'd maybe, I'd made it. I was in my 50s. I was, strong, healthy. And I had one of many scares with a biopsy. And I said, this time, my sister said, why don't you talk to a plastic surgeon and find out about prophylactic, just to get data. Data's good. So I met with the surgeon, who also told me I didn't have cancer. It was a good day, and said, you're a really good candidate for a bilateral mastectomy with a deep flap reconstruction where they use your belly fat to reconstruct your breasts. So they're all me, right? It's my tissue. There's no foreign bodies.
Right.
He said I was a good, which basically, guys, that means I had enough belly fat to make boobs. Like,
Woohoo!
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Like my sister wasn't a candidate, but she's, fit as the one can be.
I mean, man, yeah.
I know. But anyway, I said, no, I'll think about it. I thought about it, said, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Why put my family through the risk of chemo? Let's do it. So fast forward, January 10th, 2023, I had got it scheduled. It's a 14-hour surgery. There's lots of doctors and nurses and stuff. It's a big deal to schedule it. And I wanted it then so that I would be able to enjoy my summer and that I could have gone a little skiing beforehand. Like this, I was planning it because I could. And my surgeon says, Joelle, I need you to schedule your mammogram. I said, why? You're cutting them off. She says, it's protocol. Occasionally, very rarely, someone has breast cancer and we actually have to go a different path. Like, fine. I had an MRI in June. I'd had a reduction to get ready for the mastectomy in October. All were clear, no cancer, no whatever. And I don't think people realize, like, even aggressive cancers, other than the blood cancers, they're not growing that fast. Right. And mine was aggressive, but I had my mammogram, and my ultrasound, wait, we see something of concern. I got to tell you, 40% of the time I got a mammogram, they saw something of concern. This isn't something that worries me. We do the diagnostic mammogram. Yeah, we see something of concern. We're going to do an MRI. By the way, this is happening Jan 3, Jan 4, Jan 5. I am on the gas saying, keep going because I have this surgery on the 10th and it's a big deal to move it. People are flying to help me. I have all these things set up. So MRI still, we want to do a biopsy. They say, well, we can't do the biopsy before your surgery. You'll have to move your surgery. You'll love this, Idongesit. I said, no. I said, excuse me? I said, do you have any idea how much it takes to coordinate? This is not, I need to move a colonoscopy. That's annoying, but not a big deal. This is no,
What's that?
I'm not moving this. And they're like, what? Magic of magic. They found a spot at 8 a.m. the next morning to do a biopsy. And I'm like, this is not anything. We've done this before. So funny because they did a core needle biopsy and they say, don't jump when you hear the sound. It sounds like a gunshot. So they do the thing on the side of my breast. It hurts like someone took steel knuckles and pounded into me. I turned to the doctor. I said, you buried the lead. It's not the sound. Right? But I didn't move, whatever. So on January 9th, I'm on a Zoom call. I'm doing work. I'm trying to get everything set up because I'm having surgery the next day. My phone rings. It's my surgeon. And she says, Joelle, I'm sorry, it's malignant. And I said, you have to be effing kidding me. And I said, okay, so we do the surgery and then what? She goes, no. What do you mean? I mean, my mother had surgery right away. My sister had surgery right away. If you have breast cancer, you remove the offending organ.
Right.
And she said, that's not the protocol with the best results for someone with your pathology. Yes, I was in a little bit of shock. Yeah. It's like, I can't believe this is happening. And I had the presence of mind to say, why? And she said, it gets better results. So then I said, okay, I need an oncologist. So if anyone's listening to this and you are told by someone that you have cancer, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to lose your breath for a moment. The first question is, can you refer me to an oncologist? Not a surgeon, not everything. An oncologist is a specialist in cancer. If surgery is the right first thing, and it can be, they're going to tell you that. But they're also going to tell you what the treatment pathways are. And these pathways are changing all the time. We are innovating. And, they're not interested in torturing us. They are interested in curing us. And so I asked her for an oncologist and said, crap, there are 300 people who knew I was going to have this surgery tomorrow because I had to shut down things for work and whatever else. And I have friends and my parents, my kids. I have to tell these people I have cancer before I know how advanced it is, before I know how I'm going to treat it, before I know who my doctor is. So I wouldn't recommend telling the entire world before you know stuff. I didn't feel I had a choice. So I wrote an email and I started a caring bridge. And by the way, I told my husband, my best friend, my sister. I had my sister on deck so I could tell my parents and then she could talk to them, which is, I did the reverse for her, right? Like we have this down. I mean, 10 times we know what to do. And then I sat my kids down at the dining room table and I told them before I told the other 300 people. And that's a totally different conversation. But my daughter had an appointment with her therapist right after. And I walked in with her to the therapy appointment and she's all teary as you'd expect. She's scared. She's scared for me, but she's also scared for herself, which is totally fine and totally normal. And I said to the psychiatrist, I said, hey, I'm bringing you a steaming pile of shit. Oh, a really good time. Here's what it is. He looks at me and says, I'm really sorry. Are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay. Like, we've done this before.
I love it.
And he says, well, I hope that I am the best person in the world for your daughter to talk to right after being told that. And I said, I'm sure you are. So yay for mental health providers. They are awesome. Yay. And so I'm trying to find an oncologist. I told everyone I started a caring bridge. The caring bridge became part of how I processed what I was going through, part of how I ensured people had the information if they wanted it and didn't have to ask me. So I didn't have to tell stories over and over and over again because it gets very tiring. And then people started loving the caring bridge. And I would write about the different approaches and the things I was doing to make the journey better, to make the journey. I mean, there's an absurdity to it, right? You have a port in your body. They hook you up to a thing called the octopus, right? Like you put a cap on your head that freezes your scalp. Then you put your hands in ice mittens and your feet in ice mittens. The rest of you is covered in blankets. I mean, it's absurd. But the cap kept my hair and the mittens and the socks kept me from getting neuropathy and the blankets were delightful. And I had created a thing I call now happiness tripwires, where I had put into my routine as I faced cancer, things that just happened that made me smile. And it turns out, and there's science around this, but I'm sure you see this with all kinds of things in your work, that little moment of a smile bolsters your immune system. And so by the time I got to my 12th chemo, my oncologist looked at me and she's like, your labs don't look like a cancer patient. I was at the lowest level of steroids, which they do to help bolster your immune system. I didn't lose my hair. I was never sick, which is lucky about how my body responded, but I was also very aggressive and proactive in using pharmaceuticals, prescribed and now legalized, to minimize the possibility that I'd be nauseous. I ate food that was unlikely to unsettle my stomach. So I was deliberate, but the result was I was fine. And my chemo worked. It obliterated the cancer, which is great. I felt good. I kept exercising, working out. I even traveled a bit during it. I worked during it. And even the surgery, which was ultimately, instead of being Jan 10th, was May 4th. My surgery, major surgery, 6 drains, after the first day where I didn't have a say because I was unconscious, I didn't use any narcotics. I just used Tylenol and ibuprofen, and that was enough to manage the pain. And so that also helped me recover because I wasn't on a narcotic where I was drowsy or I was constipated or anything. There are so many moments where you as a patient can partner with your medical team and have agency, that I wrote the book, Crushing the Cancer Curveball, so that people who don't have 10 rounds facing this curveball know what I knew and can choose whatever you want to choose. I was advised early to find a therapist for myself. I did. It was a wonderful gift. I took advantage of massage because why shouldn't I feel good? I used acupuncture as another way to help with the neuropathy. Why not? I met with the nutritionist to understand what food could fuel my body. And all the doctors were clear, there's actually foods you have to avoid.
Yes.
Like grapefruit. Who knew? But, grapefruit and vitamin C are not good with chemo.
With any medication.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely not good with chemo and apparently any medication. So another thing was I learned I have to tell my team everything, every supplement, every ache, every moment. And I created a set of tracking tools because who remembers 3 weeks later what happened every week? Like nobody. And when you have chemo brain, you're already a little fuzzy. And so I used a Google sheet and I tracked it and I shared it with my healthcare team. So they, experts like you, could do pattern recognition. The pattern recognition is how we got the steroids down, right? Because I didn't need them and they were making me jittery and it was impacting my ability to sleep. Great. Let's see what happens. You're having an experiment and you're providing data. And if you provide data to people of science, they like it.
Yes. We want it. Please, we need it.
And, so on joellekaufman.com, in addition to being able to find the book, there's a bunch of free resources like a tracker for side effects, a tracker for medications, a financial projection model, because the overwhelming source of stress after you start treatment is money.
Yes.
Because people don't know if they can work. One of my friends, I met her during treatment. We were same diagnosis, same timeline. She doesn't have a genetic. She was 38, but she was a charge nurse, labor and delivery nights. She couldn't work, right? There was no way for her to work while she was going through treatment. Her immune system was too compromised and she shouldn't be up all night delivering babies, right? That's not good. I could work. It's just different for different people and the different kinds of lives you live. That was probably too long an answer, but
No, that was perfect. Stop it. That was perfect. I needed that. So, you mentioned something that most people don't think is important, but I absolutely love this for modern healthcare. And the more practitioners bring this into the modern healthcare system, the better results they see when we're talking about data and tracking all those data. You talked about the importance of therapy. You talked about the importance of utilizing acupuncture. You talked about the importance of a nutritionist tailoring your meal. You talked about the importance of avoiding certain food because it causes drug interaction. These are things that the everyday person may not consider. And looking back to healthcare, maybe 20 years ago, these were not things that were readily brought in as a tailored aspect of planning a patient's care, right? So with that mind-body connection, in your experience, do you think that really had a huge impact in your recovery process and you're going through that process? Because it's like going through a furnace, cancer treatment it can be debilitating for people depending on circumstances, right? So do you think that added cushion of integrative medicine actually helped support your journey through treatment?
I have no doubt. So the things that I'm sure helped, the therapist, invaluable. And I have a great relationship with my husband, with my sister, with my parents, with my best friend. I have a sister-in-law who's a doctor. She's awesome. I have dear friends. I have a rich life. And all of them were more than happy to let me share whatever I needed to. But I care about them too. And having a therapist that I could share whatever I feel, whatever I'm going through, without worrying about if it worried them. It's just that, guys. Like, you need to be able to talk freely to someone whose emotional reaction is irrelevant. And a good therapist, mine was a psycho-oncologist. She specializes in cancer. A good therapist will not get emotionally involved in your story. They will be there for you. So definitely helpful, because that which we repress persists, right? That which we accept transforms. So it's actually that which we resist persists, but it's also repressed.
Yes.
Second, the nutrition, I want to be clear. The nutritionist gave me guidelines. I can't afford my own person preparing meals, but I know, I wish, but she would give me guidelines. And it was funny because that conversation started with me saying, if you're going to tell me to be vegetarian, I'm out. And she said, I wasn't, but thanks. Because I'm like, I like I can't live on vegetables alone. He said, yeah, most people can't. You're okay. But, I'm sure she's like, what is happening? Like I said, no to the scheduler.
Well, it's the first time she's heard that. That's why she kind of like, okay, relax. You're cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did. I was like, oh, good. Tell me what I should do. And it was great. So just giving me guidelines that could be implemented. The acupuncture, first off, it's lovely. Like, it's a lovely experience where you can quiet your mind. It's soothing. Did it help with the neuropathy? I think so. It's not the only thing I did. So I couldn't do a A/B test and say, well, just do it on the left side and I'll do the ice on the right. And let's see which ones gets like, that's stupid. I was going to throw everything at it. And the acupuncture was lovely. They are licensed out here in California. So this is not going to like some crazy whatever. I didn't do a lot of supplements. And that is because 2 reasons. One, there's not a lot of science on it and drug interactions are real. And I needed my chemotherapy to work. So I wasn't going to get in that way. And by the way, I left out Idongesit. I also was eligible for and did immunotherapy, which is cutting edge stuff. It was 12 months, every 3 weeks. I had no side effects. There are potential side effects. I didn't have any. And that stuff is magic because teaching my immune system how to detect and fight this, I'm good. Let's do that. But the massage was, again, self-care. When we think about the acupuncture, the massage, the therapy, the happiness tripwires, they're all about reducing stress in my system. And stress, cortisol, is an inflammatory. Cancer is inflammatory. And so the things I did that naturally reduced stress in a stressful situation. And the final part was changing how I thought about the situation. So I want to go back to the beginning when you said, people are told they have cancer and it's serious and it's scary. And it is both. Yeah. We are also inundated through entertainment, media with cancer as a plot device, cancer as a horror story. Just for fun, what % of people diagnosed, women diagnosed with non-invasive breast cancer, non-systemic, so no metastases, breast cancer, so stage 3 down, what % do you think in the United States live 5 years or more?
It's gotten better with treatment advances. So I would comfortably say maybe about 90 to 95%, if not closer to 100.
It's 99.
See?
Right. And it's early detection. So I want people to know the number one way people detect breast cancer is with
your fingers,
their hands. Touch your breasts.
Touch yourself. It's okay.
That's right. It's good. It's good. It's not just okay. It's recommended.
It's recommended. Yes. Good. Touch yourself. It's okay.
That's it. Be familiar. Know what they're about. And so obviously mine was detected through screening because mine was 9 millimeters and it wasn't palpable. If you have a risk profile, you know what? If you have breasts, you should talk to your doctor about what's the right screening given your history, your breasts. Some of us, go ahead.
I love how you say if you have breast, because when people think about breast cancer, they think it's a woman's diagnosis. And I've seen men wait until it's really late in the game because they were ashamed to say something. They felt a lump. I'm a man. I'm not supposed to have breast cancer because this is a woman's disease. No. If you have things on your chest that have nipples on them, it's okay.
That's right.
If you feel anything different, discharge, discoloration, texture, please say something. Your family wants you around. Your providers want you around. So we want to be able to intervene on time. So if you have breast, oh my goodness, thank you, Joelle.
Absolutely. And that also includes if you're trans and, I don't care. And even if you've had a mastectomy, my sister had a second primary after mastectomy.
Wow.
Now that's because there was a minuscule amount of breast tissue up here in the tail, but she could feel it, right? So you have to be aware and sync with your body. And then people are afraid. Well, what's this going to do to my life? Well, first off, probably extend it. Right? So talk to your doctor. Talk about what screening makes sense for you, given your profile. I had a global elite frequent flyer card to the breast imaging center. Mammogram on demand. That is not right for everybody. That is not what's needed for everybody. My surgeon, Dr. Laura Esserman, is the chief researcher of the Wisdom 2 study, which is actually open to all people with breasts. I think they want biological women because there are different hormone profiles. The diseases act a little different. She said 80% of their patients that have breast cancer find it themselves, and they're watching. Right? So touch yourself. But I do think that we need to change the narrative, right? Cancer will affect 1 in every 2 Americans, 1 in every 4 in the world, right?
Scary statistic.
It is. And we could talk about why, and people spend a lot of time like, why did I get breast cancer? I was pretty lucky. I knew why. I have a gene mutation. It causes this to happen. But most people don't know why and will never know why. And is it something in the air? Is it something in the food? Is it like, don't smoke. Don't drink to excess, exercise, try to keep your weight in a good place. Like these are all the things that have to do with stay healthy. And people have said to me, wow, you recovered from that surgery really fast. What's the secret? Like, well, I was really strong before I got cancer. And then I kept exercising, which there's some research, really interesting stuff, that exercising during chemotherapy reduces side effects. So be healthy. Try to live as healthy as possible. And sometimes cancer happens pretty often. So the narrative isn't your life is over. You're going to be miserable. It's going to be terrible. This is just something you're going to go through, and take it seriously. But, put happiness tripwires in the way. Put things like, I sat there with my kids when I had to tell them. And 2 of my boys were in college on the other side of the country, and they were at home for a winter break. And they're like, we're going to be gone. What can we do? I'm like, well, first off, I never wanted you to be my caregivers, so we're good. But here's what you can do. To my eldest, be my DJ. Make music for me to listen to as I go through treatment, and just be my DJ. And he said, I can do that. He loves music. My other boy, we've been through some stuff together. And I said to him, I would like a letter every week on my infusion day that I can read between the lab draw and the start of the infusion. And it's going to be a treat that I give myself. Even if you send it to me earlier, I'm not going to read it until then. It's going to be my virtual digital chocolate. I got 12 letters every Wednesday from my 19-year-old college freshman. How many mothers get a letter from their son every week? Like, how great is that, right? And by the way, I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't have cancer. My other son wouldn't have called me every day if I didn't have cancer. Like, I got more intimacy from my family because I got cancer. Now, that's a blessing. I have a family that did that for me. But there are people who want to love you. And when you tell people I'm going through this, and what I really need is just to hear from you from time to time to make me smile. That's the easiest gift you can give someone. I have a friend, he lives on the other side of the country. Every chemo, I got a text from him with his nickname for me and emojis of blowing kisses. That was it. A 10-second thing for him. God, I was like, how awesome. So give people that kind of smile, and it's a blessing. And people asked me if they could pray for me. I said, absolutely. I welcome all blessings, all prayers. I reached out to my rabbi and said, could you put something together? I don't really read Hebrew, but she did, and it was musical. So I got to listen to a set of prayers that I liked in music that I liked. I'm like, this is not a bad way to spend a day.
It's beautiful. And the importance of community is very much necessary, especially when people are going through an unknown, because a cancer diagnosis is a huge unknown. People do not know what the treatment modality will look like for them because everybody's affected differently. So we're definitely going to have a 2-part to this. So you and I already kind of like, we were right on it. So with the disparities that actually do exist, because you brought somebody to my attention. If somebody does not have a healthy community of people, say you had the support of your family, you had your sister, your mom, your children, your husband, even the rabbi, had a role to play. For people who may not have the support of that immediate nucleus, was there an outside community that, even the friend you said you met during your treatment journey, is there a community of women, men who are experiencing the same thing that you think is important for a person to seek out? Because there's that understanding that, okay, we're experiencing the same thing, but at the same time, I'm going to need somebody to like check in every now and again.
Yeah. So there are plenty of support groups if that is something you want or need. They are often affiliated with your healthcare system. They're affiliated with the churches. They're affiliated with the American Cancer Society, with Sharsheret. So if you go to my website, if you really feel like you're alone in this, go to my website. There are resources, but you can contact me. I will support. I will literally be a person for you,
Absolutely.
right? And I will help you identify your other people. I have yet to meet a clergy member of any faith that would turn someone away if they said, hey, I'm facing cancer and I need clergy support.
Right. So what we're going to do for anybody who's listening is that we are going to make sure the show note has everything Joelle related, her website, the offers, and, her book coming out this month, because it is important to have support. It can be a lonely journey. It can be a difficult journey. And it is important to have support from people. So, just to scratch the surface a little bit, because I know that we're coming up on our time. So, given that there was a history of the diagnosis in your family, we talked about this a little bit before we jumped on. Were you going in with an expectation of what your treatment would be? And then how flexible were you when you were referred to an oncologist and they're like, well, maybe you're used to a family member getting this treatment. However, this is the direction. How did that make you feel with the level of trusting a new method of treatment when you've been exposed to something prior?
Yeah. So first off, I'm very lucky. I don't live in a medical desert. And there are 2 national cancer institutes, cancer centers, within 15 miles of where I live. And I do think that everyone should try to get at least a second opinion from a national cancer institute. They will be at the cutting edge of where the science is. There are clinical trials. I was not in one, but there are options to keep yourself at the cutting edge. And that's a good place to be with cancer care. When my doctors explained the protocol and explained why, that they wanted to see how my tumor responded to the chemo. And by the way, they didn't say that at the onset. They told me we do it neoadjuvant. I asked why. So for anyone listening, it is okay and encouraged to ask questions. It is not disrespectful. I did not come in with a Google stack and say, it says I did not do that. Dr. Google was not my oncologist, nor is ChatGPT or Perplexity. None of them are my oncologist. But I came in, I had questions that I had put in place initially.
Yes.
In the conversation, I had both my husband and my sister-in-law in the room. We went through the questions and we kept asking. And then if I had questions afterwards, I used my virtual chart and I sent questions. This is happening to you. You are at the center of your cancer treatment, and it matters more to you than to anyone else on the planet.
That's right.
So of course you'll have questions. Now you asked, was I resistant? I mean, the credentials of my team were spectacular. They were referred by multiple people. They are published in their industry, in their field. They are, and I will tell you in retrospect, they are compassionate. They are brilliant. I like them. They've all actually written endorsements of the book. They liked me back. But because of who they were, their credentials, I was confident putting my life in their hands. And I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to be active. I'm not into being a victim. I was somebody who was facing cancer. I named my project the Cancer Obliteration Project, and these were the people on my team to help us do it. So If they had said stand on your head for 15 minutes a day, I would have figured out a way to stand on my head for 15 minutes. They did not, because that is not actually something you need to do.
You do that, don't you?
They told me to keep my hair. You should use the, cold capping. It can work. And the cold capping people said, so here's the deal. You can't wash it more than once a week. I looked at them. I was like, do you know how much hair I have? Like, what kind of chaos will reign? But they said, that's what works. So I went to my hairdresser. I said, I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm going to be starting chemotherapy. I'm going to be doing this cold capping. I will not be able to use a hair dryer. I will not be able to use a brush. I will not be able to wash it more than once a week. I will be able to use a wide tooth comb. Could you please style my hair so that it's functional? And he did. Right? And he did. And, was it always glamorous? It was not. But I also bought hats and scarves. And I was ready for if I need to wear a baseball cap for however long, I will, or I had some snazzier hats, right? There are options here. My sister, who was diagnosed 3 months before her wedding, she did lose her hair. We all wore wigs to her wedding. All of us, in solidarity. And her wig was beautiful, not as beautiful as her hair, but she was a stunningly beautiful bride. And so you're going to live through it, and taking control and facing that curveball and saying, I choose how I live through this. That's not I choose the treatment protocol. Please let a qualified medical professional who specializes in your kind of cancer make that choice. They know more.
And if you're not comfortable, go somewhere else.
Or second opinion or what have you.
Right. Just, it's not worth the tug of war, right?
It's not.
The people that, have different modalities of treatment. That is why when you said seek a second opinion, I'm all for that. You have to go where you're comfortable. At the end of the day, it is your treatment. If you can trust the doctor, regardless of the recommendation, their accolades, the education, it is okay to say, you know what, maybe I'll go somewhere else. That's important.
Absolutely. And one of the times we do have to jump, but one of my mother's cancers was very aggressive and relatively rare. She had a bladder cancer after the breast cancer, and her team was at Stanford. She lives in Florida. And when they said, we're going to do neoadjuvant chemo, they were like, do we need to stay here for, 3 months? They didn't want to live in my house for 3 months. They want to be in their house. And what the doctor said is, you can be coordinating it and you can be in Florida. So there are lots of ways to make this work. Mm-hmm. You have to trust your medical team. You are putting your lives in their hands. I have so much gratitude. I love my medical team. I loved my nurses. I love my medical assistants. I love the nurse practitioners. I would chit chat with them when we're going into the infusion, because they're people and they are angels who are there to help. They want you to be comfortable. They want you to be safe. So in our next one, ask me what I did in the infusion center, because I broke all.
Given you, it's going to be a thing. I'm looking forward to it. So this was an incredible first part. So everybody, thank you for being here. And if you're affected by cancer, or somebody that's affected by cancer, I think is a good, even if you don't take it as an educational opportunity, you just a good informational session. I'm sure Joelle has a lot in her book. We are going to do a second part. We'll delve into her dealing with the treatment and also the treatment that she received, the pharmaceutical intervention and things of that nature. Because again, there's a lot of fear about chemotherapy, radiation. So we'll delve into that. But please feel free to interact. Let us know what you think. I hope we said something that was useful to you. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, Joelle.
Thank you, Idongesit.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.